pretty. When trees can grow down.
He partied all the time.
Here was my lesson, right? So I remember.
Except by,
Hey,
by
son,
Green.
I'm
Yeah.
your mom was
I remember
property.
we had
You
our
want to with
friend next meeting. Yeah, we didn't know where it was. We'd never heard of it.
And dropped it
How
down.
high?
It's an okay thing.
How high?
There's 1 foot, and 1 foot, and 1 foot there.
I get it. I get it. So there were this general law over here.
Oh, this picture. So he took this. Come pick me up.
Yeah.
Okay, son.
Like you said,
And as you come up, he explained everything. The gym, about him.
When are you getting up on that internet? If it's starting to rain and going crazy, people are
It's gonna be interesting.
get really nervous, right? Not, I am. They changed their mind, didn't
What
they?
ended up happening? We have our
Oh my God.
and she wants to kind of wrestle more situation. She wants to try to start doing this as some sort of end game, like a strategy for communicating and trying to get more facilities. So
This is going to be so good. What do you think about that?
I think that it's absolutely spot on perfect. I think it's moving at a snail's pace. That's my honest view. Like they've had a consultant like that in the meeting.
They hired consultants for
We've had consultants. So we've had Hillman and Chris. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, thanks, Matt.
You still have him for today, or?
Yeah, he's still hanging in there, but it's bad. Yeah, it's like,
I saw the picture of you and your boys. I saw the picture of you and David. Oh, cool. Oh, did you? Yeah. Still one of my good friends.
And they jumped him for probably the last 2 or 3 years. He was dealing with all the diuretics and all the
Is that the only one?
My mom's over at my house and she let me know.
Okay. Okay, thank you. It's 6:30. Where's Marlene?
Never known another farmer. Never experienced anything bad.
Okay.
We left her in the room. Whenever they get here. Okay, so what did you want me to do? Consent calendar. Okay. Okay, don't confuse me. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting, March 20th, 2018. We are back from closed session. No action was taken, but direction was given. Report out of closed session. As to item 1 on closed session, the council has carefully considered alternatives to the provision of police services, including discussions with the county sheriff for contracting for police services to the city. The council has determined that at this time, the city will discontinue discussions with the county sheriff and that the city will continue to provide police services through the city's police department. As to all other matters on closed session, no reportable action was taken. I'm going to ask that Councilman Hatley lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ordinarily, we would proceed with the proclamation. We do have one tonight, but we are waiting on the recipients. So we'll move forward with the consent calendar.
Madam Vice Mayor, if I could I please pull item number 3?
Yes. Consent calendar addresses items 1 through 3. 1 has been pulled by the acting city administrator, Chief Lagrone. And are there any other items that council members would like to have pulled before I ask for a motion? Excuse me.
Item 2 is being pulled. Thank you. I'm looking for a motion.
Move we approve item 1 with the consent agenda, with items 2 and 3 pulled.
Begin voting. Begin voting.
This item is passed.
Thank you. We have a public speaker for item 2, Pastor Bill Spear.
Hello. Good to be with you this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As I was looking over item 2, was reading over all the requirements and all the stuff that it's wanting to do, and considering how understaffed the city is, and all of the double and triple jobs that people are required to do, and the desired outcome, it seems to me like you could just put a couple posters up and save all the red tape and still achieve the required outcome that the state was wanting us to come through as a city. Just in our cuts alone to our city, just in the reduction of that alone, meets the required reduction of landfill and waste, and it seems like a lot of trouble and a lot of issues to go through for saving the printing, and which our city already is. I'm not sure how much the grant is to go alongside, but it seems hardly worth all the trouble that and the extra burden on our city. As you walk through our city, you see that the roads are all tore up, the curbs and gutters. Everywhere you look, there's work needing done. And it seems to me it would be a lot better and a lot more productive if we would do less, but do it better. Figure out what you can take off the table and what you can do, and do it good. In 2008, there was a recession, and I had to make some cuts in my business. I had to get rid of trucks. I had to lay people off. It wasn't nice, and it wasn't good, and a lot of people were affected. But as a business, that's what had to be done. I think as a city, we need to look through some of this silly stuff. The state, just because the state requires this, and this, and this, and we think we got to jump through all the hoops to get all these grants and spread ourselves thinner and thinner and thinner. We need to reassess the time that we have, the energy that we have, and use it more wisely. Figure out how we can take some stuff off of the table completely, like our parks. We're doing a terrible job. Find a way to privatize our parks, get private companies or organizations or nonprofits that would be willing to take. Other cities have done that. We need to do less, not more. You look at all the trouble that you have to go through to get whatever this grant is. I think it could be accomplished with a couple posters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Farley, could you answer that?
Good evening, Council and Vice Mayor. Rick Farley, Enterprise Zone and Business Systems Coordinator, as well as the Recycling Coordinator. I appreciate the comments of the previous speaker, but one of the reasons I propose doing this regional grant is, one, it provides more funding, but the county will manage it, so it takes the burden of doing the grant off of me, and it can be done more on a regional county-wide basis, and the contractor the county hires will do the work. And they're professional in this area. And the county very much wants to do this project with us. Happy to answer any questions the council may have. And there's zero cost to the city on this. It's totally funded by Cal Recycle.
Right. It was my understanding as well that Butte County will be responsible for the performance of the grant and all required documentation.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Is there any other public comment? Any comments from the dais? If not, I will ask for a motion.
Okay, I move that we adopt resolution number 8690, authorizing the collaboration with Butte County to submit a 2018-2019 Local Government's Household Hazardous Waste Cycle HD 31 Program Grant application.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Farley.
Thank you, council.
This motion has passed.
Moving on to agenda item 3, which I believe Chief Legrone will be giving us a report and update.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor and Council. What this item is in front of you tonight is the consideration of the approval of the Assistant City Clerk position and also the restructuring of the salary schedule. This represents a significant decrease in what we were previously paying. It previously went down from a maximum salary of $69,000 per year to $53,000. So we've realigned that to be more in alignment with what the current fiscal situation of the city is and will take us into the future. Some of the things that we came across after this report came out, and the reason why I asked to have it pulled, was I needed to make some changes to the job description itself. There was some concern expressed to me regarding this job description and some things that members felt would be more appropriate if we were to take them out at this time and change it. So what you have is a job description that I've changed. There are additional job descriptions over here for anyone that is interested. The items that have been removed is in the examples of essential functions. We have taken out the redevelopment agency. The redevelopment agency does not exist anymore, so there is no need to include that in this document any longer. We have also put that the person will be under the direction of the city administrator instead of the general direction. That was struck out. We struck out that the assistant clerk prepares city council and clerk's office budgets for review, approval, and administers adopted budgets. That is not going to be a function of this position any longer. That will be handled by the city administrator or the finance director. We have also taken out principles and practices of staff supervision, training, and performance evaluations. And we also took out some archaic language that has been in here for probably 30 years or more, that included the necessity to understand how to work a computer. Computers are standard office equipment now, so that is something that is basic knowledge as far as staff sees it. We also have removed any and all parts regarding supervision. This position does not supervise anyone, so we have removed that. The things that we have adjusted to is we've taken out references to secretaries and changed those to assistants. That term is not typically used anymore, so we have changed those. On the education portion of this job description, we have taken out the requirement to have a 4-year degree. We have reduced the position. They are under the direct supervision of someone else that will have a 4-year degree, which will be typically the city administrator. And what we have added in here is language to indicate that the individual should have an Associate of Arts degree in public or business administration or closely related field, or the person can come with extensive experience and training that directly relates to these duties, and the position may be considered in lieu of the educational requirements. So that gives us an and or an or. If a person came in very experienced in this area, this is somebody that we could hire and would be interested in, but they may not necessarily have the 2 or 4 year degree that the description has in it. So this just gives us options, gives us more latitude in that area. The one thing that we have added, that this is all new language, is under additional requirements. There's been some concern expressed in the past about the confidentiality of this position, so we've added this language. We've added that the individual understands the confidential nature of this work and is confidential and discreet in all matters related to their duties. The reason why that's important and why everybody should know that is oftentimes information about individuals, whether you're running for office, you work here in appointed positions or other positions, as far as property that you own, assets that you have and things like that, have to be disclosed, and that goes to the state. It's best practice to keep that as confidential as possible until it gets to a point where it's on a 700 form and it's disclosed to the state, and then individuals who wish to mine for that information can find it on the Secretary of State's website. So those are the requests that we're asking for, the salary being adjusted, and we're looking for any guidance or input that you may have or any other additional adjustments you would like on the job description.
Thank you for the clarification. And are there any comments from the dais? There are no public speaker comment. I'm looking for a motion.
Move we approve the proposed salary range for the position of Assistant City Clerk and place the position into the Oroville City Employees Association with the changes as noted by the Acting City Administrator.
I'll second that.
This motion has passed.
Thank you.
Council.
I believe that our recipients for the proclamation are here. And I'm going to ask Councilman Berry to do the honors.
It isn't Price is Right, but you can come on down. They wanted to say that for you. It could be the only time ever.
I know it's raining outside now quite a bit, and I'm glad you made it. And I thank you very much for it. We have a proclamation in recognition and appreciation of Neil and Mary Terrell. Whereas the Oroville City Council and all departments of the city of Oroville recognize and appreciate the enormous contribution given so generously by Neil and Mary Terrell to this community. And whereas in recognizing a need for a safer neighborhood, Neil and Mary Terrell started the Payne, that is Park Avenue Improvement Network, Neighborhood Watch, over 25 years ago. Whereas they helped recruit other residents of the neighborhood by way of monthly phone calls made by Mary to residents to remind them of the monthly meetings held throughout the year. And whereas Neil would create and distribute flyers to residents announcing the yearly cleanup, along with arranging and coordinating with Recology of Butte County to participate. And whereas because of the efforts of Neil and Mary, along with the help of a watch group, one of the worst areas in the city has become a safer area with over a 93% reduction in reported crime. And whereas because Neil and Mary, the Payne Neighborhood Watch has continued throughout the years, where without their help, it is doubtful the Neighborhood Watch would have been as successful. And now, therefore, I, Jana Goodson, Vice Mayor of the City of Oroville, in concurrence with the Oroville City Council, do hereby recognize Neil and Mary Terrell for their perseverance and valuable contribution to the Oroville community, and urge all citizens to join with me in this sincere expression of appreciation for their outstanding efforts in community service. I know some people might think it's kind of insignificant, but it's not. Because over 25 years ago, Mary and Neil, along with other residents in that area, got together and decided they wanted to make the neighborhood safer than what it was. And their continuing effort, along with the other neighborhood watch people, Nancy, along with the others, everybody worked together, worked hand in hand with the local police department, and gave countless hours in contributing information to the police department as to what was going on in the neighborhood. It took about a year to clean up the area, but they've been cruising along ever since then, maintaining a safe environment there and a nice neighborhood. They have little petty problems. They complain now about traffic moving too fast and somebody knocking over the garbage can, but the major crimes that used to occur there don't occur there now. And I wish to thank them for all their effort and wish them well. Mary has put in a lot of time and effort into the neighborhood watch and made Neil help. And with that, she is going to be retiring from that position, but she's still going to participate some.
I know we appreciate this, and I think that Mary should have more credit, have more credit than I. But years ago, there was a certain police officer who decided to watch out in the area, didn't he? Yes, he did. And I think that made a big difference, frankly. And we're grateful for the thought expressed here. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Moving on to administration. Item number 4, it is a public hearing, and this item will be opened up to the public after comments from the dais.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
This item is before you for a second reading. It's to amend the CalPERS contract for the Oroville firefighters to pay additional CalPERS per their agreement. I'll answer any questions you may have.
First reading or second?
Second reading.
Because my agenda says the first reading. Waive the first reading.
No, I believe this is the second reading.
Mine says a second.
Under item number 2.
Item 2.
Yeah. It says
Waive the first reading.
That language is a holdover. That should have been stricken.
Okay.
So if you remove under item number 4, sub number 2, where it says waive the first reading and introduced by title only, scratch those words.
Yes.
Okay. Well, mine just said that, and I just wanted to clarify it.
Yeah, no, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any additional comments? If not, I will open this up for public hearing. There are no public speakers on this item. Public hearing is now closed. I'm looking for a motion.
Move that we adopt Resolution 8685 and ordinance number 1827.
I'll second it.
This motion has passed.
Moving on to regular business. Agenda item 5, we do have a public speaker. And yes, Tyson, we'd like to hear from you first, and then comments from the dais. And we have 2 speakers on item 5.
Good evening, council members. So tonight I'm bringing together, it's a twofold issue, internet change as well as a phone system, only because they kind of go hand in hand. We can't do one without the other. So the new phone system would be like a voice over IP system, and our current internet infrastructure would not handle it. The change of the internet would allow for that to happen, and the cost for the what we're paying now for phones and what we would pay for the new internet would be a wash. So we'd get rid of paying for our copper lines, which are failing us. We actually have people using cell phones right now because some of the copper lines being wet are not allowing them to use their phones. And we would pay for a fiber connection to be brought into both the police department and City Hall. And bringing that in would then allow for the phone system to take place. So that's why I brought them together, is we can't really do one without the other. Anyway, so the change that I brought AT&T and Comcast as the internet providers, because I know there has been some question with broadband in the city and AT&T being one of the culprits, but I still recommend AT&T, one because of cost, but another because it is a fiber connection. It's no longer copper at this point in time, and their failing infrastructure is in the copper lines in the city. So the fiber connection would be the best way to go, but I wanted to bring both of them, but recommend AT&T as the one to go with. As far as the phone system, so the new phone system, right now, a lot of our city have home phones connected to standard copper lines. So this new phone system would be business-grade phones. It would allow for interchanging calls between offices, which right now we do not have that capability. And then also, because it's a network-based phone system, we can integrate any office we want back to the 2 main sites. The phone system also would be, it's a virtual system, so it would incorporate into our existing network. And so there wouldn't be the standard refresh cycle on parts, because it would just fit into our normal network upgrades that we do every so many years. So it's kind of the basics of it. Is there any questions?
And that's provided that we stay with AT&T, correct?
Well, we could go with Comcast and have the phone system would still work with Comcast. It would just be, we'd be paying more per month.
Right, and then of course we would have a savings, there would be no setup fee as well if we were to stick with AT&T. So other than the copper wiring, give me another reason for your advocacy for AT&T.
Price and, like I said, fiber. You know, these companies are going to the fiber connection.
Right.
The county has AT&T fiber. Aside from someone who cut into the fiber connection with a backhoe one day, AT&T has been pretty solid on the fiber connection side of their business. The techs that I have come out to look at even the copper lines, they're all fiber techs. They actually have, they walk in and are usually calling someone else to help them understand what they're looking at, because they're not used to the copper infrastructure. They're used to the fiber infrastructure that's going in.
Another question that I have, and I don't recall where I heard this from, but didn't the police department get a recent upgrade?
For the phone system, we did add another card into the existing phone system, and that branched out to the office that's at the municipal building.
Yes.
And so we added, I believe it's 5 phones out there. So we did do a slight upgrade on that, but that phone system is an aging phone system.
So it's still antiquated.
Yes, and it is still based off of a copper infrastructure.
All right, that was all that I had. Was it any other comments from the dais?
You mentioned there was a wash in cost somewhere? Can you explain that?
So the washing cost would be right now for our phone system in all of our copper lines throughout the city. We're paying roughly $2,700 a month. It does fluctuate a little based off of how many calls come in and out. So when we go to, say, the AT&T at $2,400 a month, we would stop paying for copper, and then we would start paying for the fiber connection. So instead of paying $2,700 a month for hardline phone systems, we'd be paying the $2,438, $18 plus taxes and fees, which would probably come out to around that $2,700 a month. So that's where the wash comes in. So there's really no extra money spent in that portion of it.
In the monthly service, sure.
Yes, yes.
Any other comments?
In regards to, are you going to continue on with the phone system, the $67,000 item?
If it's okay to move to the new AT&T or Comcast infrastructure, yes. If not, then we can't bring that phone system in because it just won't work with the copper lines. The other thing about the phone system, especially on the cost, and I forgot to mention in the staff report, is that money is coming out of the technology cost recovery fee, which is a non-general fund fee. It can't be used for salaries or anything like that. It has to be used for specific purposes, this being one of them.
So currently we have approximately 149,000.
Yes.
In that, and so you're asking for 67,000.
Yes.
And it's, once again, it's specifically earmarked, and
yes.
So it's not going to go for anything else.
Madam Vice Mayor, if I could, from the end user perspective on this phone system, what we have going in City Hall right now and what we had at the public safety facility prior to 8 years ago, I believe, was every office you go into has a different phone. In most of them are home phones that have been purchased for the city and are being used in a business environment. So what this will do is this will provide uniformity to the phones throughout the city. You'll be able to transfer a call efficiently from, if I get a call in my office and it needs to come down to the city attorney's office, I can transfer it down to the city attorney's office. Right now we do not have that ability. This will provide us also a better ability to receive messages. The phone system that I have right now, when I get a message on my phone, it actually translates it into an email and sends it to me. So, we'll be receiving things like that. It'll make us be a little more efficient. The other thing that this has with it, too, is that it will have various functions for phone trees and things like that. One of the frustrations that people run into now when they call the City Hall is the phone just rings and rings and rings and no one answers. So this will help us with that. I know phone trees, nobody likes them. I don't like them either, but unfortunately they've become a necessary component of running a business. So as an end user, this will be good for us. Our phone system at the public safety facility is reaching end of life, and this will be an upgrade for us as well, and will bring us all together, and there'll be uniformity now in the phone system.
Is there anyone else that wanted to say something? I had one more question. So
I'm on the queue.
this is agenda. Oh, thank you. My apology. Please go ahead.
The phones at the municipal auditorium are so dysfunctional that the VIPs, the volunteers in police service, are using their personal phones for business for the city, and that's ridiculous.
Thank you. This item is regarding not just the phone system purchase, but the internet change as well. And yes. So are we talking about cloud?
I did look into, well, it's going to help with our cloud infrastructure from an internet standpoint. The internet that we have, especially at City Hall, with that our financial software and also our mapping software is in the cloud. We are seeing some slowdowns, and the internet that we have, it's stated at 50 megabits, but really it's because it's best effort. So really we're going to get 20 to 30 out of that line. Where going to the fiber connection, we get true 50 megabytes down and 50 megabytes uploads. So it will help out in that infrastructure and is expandable to increase speeds if we need those in the future.
Good. All right.
Well, before a motion, I have 3 public comments. Any other questions for Tyson? Oh, thank you, Terry. Eric Smith.
Madam Vice Mayor, Council, thank you for the privilege of speaking to you. Just as a manager who's worked for 2 of one of the largest employers in our area, and so I'm very familiar with this technology or technology like it. And so the SIP technology, I believe that's being presented to you, is pretty new. And by the way, I have no dog in the hunt for Comcast or AT&T. They both have upsides and downsides. But I just want to, I guess, present my cautionary advice on this. I would probably be a little rougher on my IT department and really making sure that they've done a good comparative analysis of the technology that they're presenting. By the way, I'm 100%, I'm all about technology. We all know what happens to our phones, right? You know, like I got the iPhone and it's already obsolete as of this year. And so technology is just moving by so fast, it's crazy. It makes your head spin. And so just making sure that the system that they're purchasing truly has upgradable features, and I'm sure it does, but just looking at the industry and really making sure they've done their due diligence and their homework. And so right away I noticed something in the bids from AT&T and Comcast that were presented to you, and that actually Comcast is cheaper if I'm reading the proposal correctly, because on the business to business, by the way, I use Comcast professionally and AT&T, the company I work for, again, the 3rd largest employer next to the county and the hospital. I work for number 3, and we've had some frustrations with AT&T because the backhoe deal, yes. And so when our business got interrupted, believe you me, it was costing us thousands of dollars a minute. It was an issue. So that's a concern. I also understand that the Butte County Office of Education is using Comcast, and they just jumped into this. Just information. That's a rumor. I didn't confirm that. But anyway, looking at the business, back to the proposal, business for business, Comcast, here on the 50 megabit connection, it's 2 at $1,000.88 for $2,001.76. So if you take away, and so on the AT&T, it's only 1 megabit, 50 megabit connection. So the moment you take away and have an apples to apples comparison with the 2 proposals, what you find is that actually Comcast is $2,357.73 a month. So it's actually a little under the AT&T proposal. Now again, I'm not the Comcast guy, I can care less. What I'm wanting is the most robust system that the city can possibly purchase, and that my IT department has absolutely done their homework. And then I also would ask the question of both Comcast and AT&T, since they both are offering fiber in our area, is that whose fiber is best protected? Who's going to continue to invest in our community? What's AT&T's long-range plan? What's Comcast's long-range plan? Your IT department should know that. And I think that should also be a part of the proposal. If I were you, I'd send it back and I would get some of those questions answered, and also I'd ask my IT department, what about the discrepancy in the proposal between the Comcast proposal and the AT&T proposal? He may have a quick answer on that. I don't know, and I might have missed something, but it just kind of jumped out at me reviewing the 2 proposals. So, but I'm 100% for it. It's going to make your company, the city much more efficient, and reduce their frustrations tremendously. But if the technology doesn't work, which we were down for a day and a half up on the hill, and I'm telling you what, when you can't receive calls, you can't have calls going out, it's a mess, and that you do not want, absolutely do not want. So you want that most robust system that's going to provide all the benefits, all the upside with as little risk as possible. Thank you.
I didn't quite catch that figure. It was 2003 for Comcast.
So yeah, if you take away the $2,357.73.
All right.
Yeah. And your IT guy, he may have saw that and understand it and can answer it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you may.
So on the AT&T, if you look, there's the breakdown of City Hall and public safety. So the 2 sites are listed there, and I do see that they sort of missed that line item, but the price is in there of the $9.89 in both sites, so they're going to come out the same to that figure, the $24.38.18. But also with the Comcast, switching over to that one. So the two prices that they've offered is one where it's just 50 megs to both buildings, and one where it's 50 megabytes to both buildings plus a 10 megabyte connect between the two buildings, and that's where the 25 so two 50 megabyte connections, that's the $27.69 on option 1. If you add in the 10 megabit connection between the offices, they actually drop the price, and that's where the $25.29 comes in. But if you look on the next page, they've got another $827.90 of a recurring charge for the SIP connection, which the SIP connection is actually the telephone. And that's where that $1,000 installation charge comes in as well. So that's where I got those figures on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyson.
Thank you, Tyson. And we have Pastor Bill Spear on item 5. And after Pastor Bill, our next speaker will be John Miller George.
Thank you. Thank you for another opportunity to speak this evening. And, you know, as I was looking over the proposal, and it just seems like a lot of money to upgrade, and I understand it takes money to run a business or a city, but you know, people are taking cuts, and we keep hearing how dire the situation is, and you know, $67,000 is coming from somebody's pocket. So it's earmarked here. It's still coming from the taxpayers. I hardly even use a landline. I use my personal cell phone for business all the time, and a lot of people do. The landlines are kind of going the way of the dinosaur these days. It just seems that, you know, for being as broke as we are, and many financial problems, if we were really that dire of a situation, we could scrimp by and get by for another year. The average family in Oroville doesn't have the luxury of just saying, oh, well, it's money coming from somewhere, it ain't going to affect us. All the money's coming from somewhere, even if it's the federal government grant. Oh, it's a grant for the government. If we don't use it, then someone else will, or it'll go away. Well, our country's $21 trillion in debt, and it's because of living outside our means. Sometimes we got to tighten our belt and get by with what we got. We got to be like the hardworking business owner who, sure, they'd like to upgrade their phone lines too. But if there ain't money for it, there ain't money for it. You get by with what you got. We got to quit throwing money around like it ain't no big deal. It is a big deal, and it's got to come from somewhere. Why are we broke? It ain't because of lack of money. It's because of spending. We got to cut our spending. We got to look at ways to cut our spending, ways to make the dollar go farther, ways to use our resources wisely. And we just need to be diligent with the resources we have, especially if we don't have very many. This seems like an awful lot of money for a city that don't have any money. Thank you.
Thank you, George Miller. John Miller George?
Yeah, Miller George is hyphenated. My wife and I wanted to keep our maiden names. So she's the Miller and I'm the George.
All right, thank you.
I wasn't paying much attention to this agenda item until I got here, and I arrived a little late.
Oh, excuse me.
Do I need to move more of the mic?
Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, as I was sitting here and listening, I had a life experience that I thought I might share with y'all, and it might be helpful to your IT guy and your phone guy. I used to travel the world doing large computer installations for major corporations, and then when I stopped doing that, I was working on Wall Street. So one of my jobs was I got sent to Japan, and they had a new phone system they just put in, and they had spent $250,000 on it, and they had spent $250,000 more on having some guys come in and tell them that it would work. And lo and behold, I get there and I'm supposed to make some software run on it, and it didn't work. So I was not a network guy or anything else, but I found the problem that $250,000 a year consultants couldn't find. So I want to offer, since this used to be my hometown and I live in Paradise now, but I'm thinking about moving here, to work with your IT guy to see if we can both check to make sure this will do everything you need, and that you'll get the best deal possible. For instance, there's a lot of virtual exchanges now where all you need to do is buy a smartphone and all the rest of that stuff's up in the cloud or on one server. And so like I said, to me, if this were my decision to make, to be absolutely honest with you, I would table it for another month and I would come back and let us chat. That's about all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other public speakers for item 5? I'm looking for comments from the dais. If there are none, I am looking for a motion.
Hey Tyson, if I may, sorry, request to speak. There we go. There's some good points brought up here. Could you mind speaking to those?
Is there a specific one that you'd like to hear about?
Just in regards to maybe long-term scope and so maybe more of the research that went in behind this for.
Okay.
Obviously, I believe that we should invest into our communications, even though we're fiscally in a dark hour for our city. It is important that we become more efficient. So just to speak to some of these points in regarding some of the research that was put in behind it.
Okay. Some of the research that was put in, so I did look at about 8 different phone systems out there. A few of them have gone, discontinued their products, and the other ones actually have been bought out by Mitel, the company that I'm producing here. So ShoreTel was a system that I was actually looking at. I've had other colleagues in the industry, they're using it, they love it. But ShoreTel just got bought out by Mitel. And so from a longevity standpoint, Mitel has been around a long time. You just don't hear about them because they're in big businesses. They don't have to put out ads on the TVs and stuff like that. So, but in researching them, I found out they've bought some other major phone systems, JVC, and a few other ones that had phone systems out there. And then some of the other big competitors like Cisco, I mean, we're looking at $100,000 for something like that. And so that was kind of off the table at that point. And so Avaya was the other option. And in looking at the two of them, Avaya actually filed for bankruptcy. So there was another one, NEC2. I've heard from a bunch of people and did some research on it. They're not as easy to administer. So all this research kind of came back to Mitel. But while I was doing that, I was also looking at cloud, what we could do where we put the phone system, we pay for someone else to host the phone system itself, and we just have the handsets here in-house. But that would be a minimum of $2,500 a month, depending on which company you're going for. And so over time, it starts to exceed that $60,000. And so still, it just seemed more feasible to put a system in-house into our virtual infrastructure that can live on as long as we're upgrading our gear on our normal refresh.
Okay. And one more question I have is regarding, I'm not an IT guy, I know computers a little bit, but In regarding the hardware that's being put in the fiber, if we chose today to go with AT&T, would there be a potential of switching over to Comcast? Would that be an option for us, or would it be?
Yes, we could. We could switch at any time. With CalNet, I'd have to go back and look. I don't believe that there is a like we don't have to sign a 1, 2, or 5 year agreement. We sign on with them. They provide the service, and we can cancel at any time. And so we can make that change from AT&T to Comcast at any point in time. There would just be some reprogramming to bring in the different SIP connections from one provider or the other.
And so Comcast has the SIP charge, and AT&T
Yes.
doesn't?
It's all built into the infrastructure. So both of these are on CalNet, so they're already negotiated pricing for state agencies or local governments. And so really AT&T is still kind of the backbone of the U.S. with a lot of the infrastructure when it comes to fiber and even copper still. And so Comcast is really drastically catching up, but you're paying a little bit more. But AT&T, they can provide it cheaper. You know, I don't know exactly why, but they can provide the service at a lower cost.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tyson. I think we're all aware of the weaknesses in our infrastructure, and it's no longer copper. The new terminology is fiber optic. Right. And in order for us to run our city and our departments with the proper linkage, we need to be more effective, more efficient, and way more expedient. So I understand the need for the upgrade. Can you speak to the technology fee fund? I would really like to address Pastor Bill Spears' concern in regards to where this money has come from and what it can be used for.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's the technology cost recovery fee, and the fees are brought in through permitting. There's a percentage on the permits that are drawn through the city, and that goes into the technology cost recovery fee. And I'm a little hazy on the exact language of it, but it's to do with land use.
Sure. Let me tackle this one.
Thank you.
The technology cost recovery fee is what the city has done. Part of the study was the fees are established to recover the cost for providing the services, and there's a certain amount of cost related to telephone equipment and telephone lines, so to speak. The technology cost recovery was put in place to enable the city to utilize new development, to recover the cost for telephone lines, computer equipment, technology upgrades, those sorts of things. These funds are only to be used for technology upgrades and new technology purposes, software purchases, that sort of thing. It's all driven by new development. Predominantly, commercial development contributes the most towards that because that's typically the most expensive. Those fees are usually higher than your average residential development fee. But these are development fees, and the purpose for them is limited to technology. And of course, telephone lines qualifies.
Right. And internet service.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilman Berry?
And talking with Tyson over the last few years, I've come to realize here he's a lot more knowledgeable on technology than a lot of us here. I've grown to trust his expertise more and more. He seems like he does a very thorough job and most competent. And therefore, I authorize the purchase of the listed upgrades in the staff report.
I'll second it.
There's actually a person in the audience that I wanted to weigh in on this. Is this acceptable right now? Chris, I understand you're knowledgeable on this. Please do us the honors.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All I can really add to this is that I've been an IT person for 17 years, and I work for the county, and we have already taken this step to go forward. We already used the fiber optics that Tyson is speaking of, and actually where it was our area where they dug through the fiber optic cable there before. So, but this phone system for the city of Oroville will allow you guys to have better communications overall, and just through the past few days trying to call the city hall, it has been kind of a tribulation to get through to anybody. Yeah, exactly. So it's not a very good outward facing view for the city to have, and I think something like this would be a real boon to the entire council and every single department in the city, especially the police department, because they'll be able to transfer stuff to wherever they need to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I cast my vote.
This motion has passed.
Moving on to Public Works Department. I see no speaker cards from the public, and I'm looking for comments from the dais, and we also have Mr. Macero.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. This item came before you last September, and you gave authorization to take this project out to bid, and we did. In November, you approved the low bidder, Franklin Construction, to move forward with this project. In the interim, I was talking with the city administrator about how we might cover the CM services for this contract, and I think it was his hope at the time that we could bring somebody on part-time to help with other inspection services, but it just never really quite panned out, and now we're at the point where we're pretty much running out of time. Contractor, pending weather, is looking to mobilize and start on this work in April, and so we need these supplemental services to provide construction management during this project. And so we brought on a firm that we've been working with to do CM services. They have a tremendous amount of experience in pavement and construction management. Both the RE and inspector have over 30 years experience in pavement work, and I think it'd be a good way to start these projects off and make sure we get them done right. So I'd like to bring them on. So we do have budget for this project allocated to streets and roads, and the cost is really for materials testing and CM services, so they'd be adding to the budget of about $86,000 to cover those costs. That's
Could you repeat that?
$86,000 together. That's time and materials. So if we spend less, it would be less. But and then the remainder of the money we put towards our next project. We're hoping to do projects like this every year for next 3 or 4 years, in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $600,000 in repavement work, and anxious to get this project going, and so we can do a lot more like it.
And this is for, these projects have already, we've already looked at the list, we've already identified where they are. Are there any comments from the dais? There are no public comments. As you said, this item has, I believe it's the second time this has been.
Same project. This is the third time.
Oh, all right. This is the
as we
third
advance
time.
through it.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion.
Move that we approve the city engineer's proposal and request to the council.
Second.
This motion has passed.
Thank you. Moving on to business assistance and housing development, agenda item 7, and I believe
Madam Mayor,
that is,
can I respectfully request that item number 7 be pulled and continued until the April 3rd meeting?
yes. Duly noted. Moving on to agenda item 8, we do have a public speaker. Are there any comments from the dais? This is regarding the professional services agreement between the City of Oroville and Tom Lando to serve as interim city administrator.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. If I could just do an overview of what this contract presents. This contract represents a professional service agreement between the City of Oroville and Mr. Tom Lando. Mr. Tom Lando has over 30 years experience as a city manager, has worked in Chico, I believe from 1992 until 2006 as the Chico city manager, has served several boards as an interim administrator, manager, and director, most recently at the Featherford Parks and Recreation District. Mr. Lando has a master's degree in planning and a doctorate in public administration. He is coming to the City of Oroville. The contract will be for $10,000 per month, which is less than what we were paying previously to our prior acting city administrator. And this contract does not include any benefits. There are no health, no retirement, and no other benefits are associated with this contract. So this will represent, after this fiscal year, if we were to go beyond the terms of this current contract, which is from April 2nd until June 30th or July 1, if we go beyond that into the new fiscal year, it would represent approximately a 30% savings to the budget because of the no benefit package associated with this particular contract. So if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
No comments from the dais? And we have a public speaker, Bud Tracy.
Madam Vice Mayor and Council, basically I didn't want to take up much of your time tonight, but this is something that goes back a long ways for me. In 1979 through 81, City of Chico was 3,600 acres, and 2,800 acres in Southeast Chico were added by doing the Southeast Chico Sewer Assessment District. I was the chairman of that district. Met with 106 property owners, raised the money privately to fund an engineer who happened to be Dan Cook from Oroville. And we formed that district, which then allowed commercial along the freeway. 2,800 acres includes California Park and a whole bunch of areas that did not have sewer. So sewer was brought to that area for $9.9 million. That project took 2 years. I spent about 600 hours at council, and Tom Lando was the planning director at the time. So he and I met with every single parcel owner of those 106 people who put the money up to do it. It was a public-private partnership, one of the finest ones I've ever been involved with. So I can't help but think highly of him. And my favorite manager in the world, Fred Davis, was in charge at that time. Then Tom became the manager, city manager. And I think the most important part about Tom Lando that I wanted to pass on is that when you get ready to have a meeting with Tom, you send information to him first about what you're going to meet with him for. And then he will let you know how much time you have. When you walk in, he'll say, "Hi, Bud." You say, "Hi, Tom." And it's okay, let's start. You do not play around. He's very, very efficient. And he says, "Okay, I have 2.5 minutes to work this out." And when you walk out, you will have a decision, or you'll have guidance, or you'll have his commitment, or no, or you'll have his commitment to go find out what it is that's needed in order to get you an answer. The thing I'd like even more than that, I think, is that when it comes to somebody, the example in this room would be Gary Lehman. When it comes to somebody like Gary, it's an department head, and he says, meets with him, says, "Do you know your job?" Checks it out with him, agrees with that, and then says, "Okay, here's what I want done," and then he gets out of the way. So he lets people do their work. He's not a micromanager. He's unbelievably fast. From an hourly basis, I've never seen anybody get more things done. So and I haven't seen him, by the way, for about 10 years, but I have a fantastic memory of working with him and putting things together and having him involved in the community, and his experience is just beyond. So I think it's an absolute win for the community.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yes. There are no other public comments. Any comments from the dais? I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 8691, directing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement between the city and Tom Lando to serve as interim city administrator.
Second.
With agreement number 3246.
Oh, let me see here. Yes, thank you. With agreement number 3246.
This motion has passed.
Moving on to council announcements and committee reports.
On February 27th, I met with Craig Construction regarding the municipal parking lot. The reason I mention that is because I followed up with a phone call with Rosanna Pinochet, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, regarding charging stations, requesting that any plan for future development of that parking lot include charging stations. Electric cars are here to stay, and they'll be selling them secondhand, and we need places. The new stations only require a half hour, so I wanted those included. On 3/13, I opened the Arbor Day ceremonies at Bird Street School. Of course, the highlight of that was our master arborist, Wade Atterbury, demonstrating the abilities of our tree lift. He was up in the air waving back and forth on this tree lift, and the children were thrilled. I hope all of you attend the ceremony downtown on the 24th. There will be booths down there. Also on the 13th, I attended the Butte County Healthcare Coalition. I'm a member of that board, and we're attempting to pass Senate Bill 562, which is a universal health care bill. On March 14th, I spoke with spoke at the broadband workshop meeting. Councilman Scott Thompson read a letter from our mayor. It was compelling. She did an excellent job, and we're trying to get broadband here. On the 15th, I attended the Downtown Business Association meeting, and they're concerned with extended parking in front of the businesses. People park their cars for days. Sometimes a 72-hour period will go by with a car parked in front of their business, which restricts other people's ability to shop there. On the 15th, that same day, I attended Stage in my capacity as city liaison. On April 6th, the Wurlitzer will be introduced to the city. It's the 90th anniversary of the opening of our downtown theater, and they will have a performance. The tickets run from $250 if you want dinner on the stage to $10 to watch the silent movie with the Wurlitzer. So it's an event that can include everyone. Also on the 19th, I attended the Continuum of Care as a substitute for Councilwoman Draper. She was attending to her father's illness, and took notes for her. And then on the 19th, on February 19th, I chaired the NAACP meeting because the chair and vice chair were both ill. Janet, Councilwoman Goodson also attended that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee reports?
Just want to add to, if I may, the CPUC meeting that was here last week, and it was great to kind of hold both Comcast, AT&T accountable for what the lack of infrastructure maintenance that's going on here in our area, and the need for broadband. And I thought it was really impactful. It seems like from there moving forward, I really appreciate as well Tyson being there and correcting some statements that AT&T made regarding their aging infrastructure. So I really appreciate that from Tyson. And one thing I do want to make note of, I really appreciate our mayor, who by the way is on our anniversary, so she couldn't be here tonight, celebrating that. But they mentioned, the ones who put that together, they came specifically because of her hounding them. So this has been one of her main fights, and we hope to see it move forward and bring some broadband and some greater connectivity to our region.
This month I attended the scoreboard and sewer commissioner meeting, the Chamber of Commerce and NAACP meeting as well. Are there any other committee reports? We will move on to acting city administrator report. Chief Legrone.
Madam Mayor, if I could just, or Vice Mayor, excuse me, if I could just, a couple things. The first one I would like to inform the council of is that, I believe it was last week or maybe the week prior, Councilperson Draper reached out to me and asked for a job study survey to be conducted of the city employees. That was also followed up by a request from the Vice Mayor to do that. So we are currently working on that. We'll be returning to you. What this study is going to include is all of the city jobs that city employees are currently doing, but it will also include what are the extra things that they're doing when they have 1, 2, 3, or 4 additional duties that aren't necessarily what they've been primarily hired to do. So we'll be returning to you with that study, I hope, toward the end of April. We're collecting data right now. We'll compile that and bring it back in a manner in which it can be easily read and make sense. So we will be doing that. We are working on that. The second thing I'd like to inform you of is yesterday afternoon I received a phone call from Mark Fairbanks. Mark is, if you don't know who Mark is, Mark owns Fairbanks Construction on 5th Avenue. He's an asphalt guy. I'm not really sure what the exact terminology is for that, but they pave stuff. He had let me know that himself and Bud Tracy had worked out a deal to restripe the parking lot down there across from the Lord's Gym. And Mark is going to be doing that work, facilitated through Bud. And what the best part of all about the whole thing is that this is a representative of 2 individuals in this community who've seen a need and have come up with a solution. They haven't came with a complaint or a problem. They've come up with a solution, and they're not charging us anything for it. They just felt it was the right thing to do for their community. So I just wanted to thank Mark and thank Fairbanks Construction, and also thank Bud Tracy. I didn't know he was going to be here. It wasn't a setup. It was just, you know, Bud just happened to show up. So I just want to say thank you to them, and how much, express to you how much we appreciate that, especially in the times that we're in now when there's things like that we can't get to because we just don't have the resources to do that. So it is greatly appreciated.
Thank
That's all
you.
I have.
City Attorney, do you have a report?
I have nothing to add.
Finance Department, Ruth? All right. We're going to move on to non-agenda items. Pastor Bill Spear, and following will be John Miller-George.
City Council, thank you again for another opportunity. Recently I got to go to Sacramento and visit with our representatives and Senator Mike Morell's office. At a nice meeting with them, and he gave me a copy of the Constitution, and it also has the Constitution of California, and I'd just like to read a little section of it before I pray. We the people, this is the preamble, we the people of the state of California, grateful to an almighty God for our freedom
in order to secure and perpetuate its blessings, do establish this Constitution. All people are by, Section 1, all people are by nature free and independent to have unalienable rights. Among these are enjoying and defending life. I want to be a defender of life. Defending life and liberty, acquiring possessions and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. We need to remember where we come from and where our blessings come from. Our Constitution, our preamble says, grateful to an almighty God, that is El Shaddai. And so, Father God, almighty God, we come to you this evening for our state, Lord, praying for your guidance and your wisdom, for your protection, that we would not forget what we are called to do, to be protectors of the helpless, to be builders of your kingdom. Lord Jesus, you said when we pray, pray like this: Our Father that art in heaven, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth, in Oroville, as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread. Continue to provide for us and for our families and for our city and for our state. Give us our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Help us, Lord, to come together, to work together, to forgive each other, to turn the other cheek, to go the extra mile, to give our cloak also. Help us to come together as a community to face these problems that are coming against us, Lord, that we would prosper. Lead us from temptation and deliver us from the evil one. You be our victory. For yours is the kingdom, and yours is the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. John Miller George. And you will be our last public speaker.
This time I'll stay closer to the mic. I was late getting here because of my honeydew list. And, happy wife, happy life. But while I was home the last 2 weeks, I was reading old agendas, news, business, and all that stuff. But even if you can read as fast as I can, it still takes a while to study in and learn everything. But I did notice that on the 29th of this month, the Planning Commission is set to approve yet another liquor store. And I kind of wonder why there's such a no fuss for a liquor store and such a big fuss over opening one cannabis delivery service. The city, in its wisdom, banned all kinds of cannabis activity, including medical. And when I first started coming to the meetings, there were a whole bunch of people in the audience that had no idea how hard it was to get medical marijuana. In fact, they all thought that, by God, we are not interfering with people like my family, like my brother who got off opioids. So I want to encourage the people who voted to start moving in the direction of legalization to be brave and thoughtful and to hurry up. I'm about ready to set off down the hill to go all the way to Oakland to spend another $300 at Harborside, and I'd rather spend it here. And I use it. I have a medical card. I still have a medical card. You don't have to have one anymore, but I still do. And I would like to encourage you all, just keep going, stand strong. Another thing, the last meeting, second to last, the police chief mentioned having a property issue where there was a non-performing property. They weren't getting any rent from it, but they were letting the people live there or do their business there, or whatever they're doing there. And the idea was to keep the building occupied so that, you know, vagrants and whatnot can get in there. So I called the police chief to try and get a chance to come down and visit with him and see the property, because I have an idea that might surprise everybody. And I even talked about it with the man that just spoke before me. So I'd like to know, I called down, and it must be the phone system because I never got a call back from the chief, but I did leave a message. Anyway, what I'd like to say is I'd like to work with the police chief on a non-cannabis related solution to that problem, okay? But if no one will call you back, it gets hard to do it. And the final comment is, how are we going to be able to meet with Tom Lando? How will we know when you've approved the contract and it's been signed, sealed, delivered, and we can start making an appointment with him?
The contract was approved just a moment ago here. So you would, I imagine, call the office and make an appointment.
So he'll be there Monday?
April 2nd. That was the terms of the contract that
April 2nd.
Yes, sir.
I'll be there.
I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to get back to you. I've been busy doing the 3 other things that I'm also employed to do. So I did not make that a priority. I apologize, but I will get to it.
I apologize to you because you weren't in your police chief clothes. I didn't think you were here.
Are there any other comments? If not, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Reverend
A
Thomas?
regular meeting of the Oroville City Council will be held on Tuesday, April the 3rd, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, and please be safe.
Reverend Thompson? I went through my chest of drawers today and pulled out a bunch of sweatshirts and sweatpants.